Debussys Children's Corner is probably one of the most famous pieces ever written for the piano, because every piano student past about year 3 or 4 will have played either Gollywog's Cakewalk or Dr. Gratos ad Parnassum, the first movement. It's really become a standard thing for you to learn as a student. So that raises the question, is it meant for children to be learning, or is it actually meant for adults to be looking at the world of children? If you had asked me that question when I was a child, I would have said it's meant for kids. And coming back to it as an adult, I find really this isn't meant for children at all. It's such deep music. Each one of these movements is a little gem. Debussy wrote the Children's Corner later in life. He finally had a daughter and decided to write something for her when she was about 3. And this is his dedication to his daughter with his excuses of what is going to follow. And of course, this drawing Debussy made. You actually have his signature here. This is the elephant Jimbo, and there's the sort of balloon with the kind of Gollywog mask on it. The opening of this piece is really one of the most beautiful things ever written. Dr. Gratos ad Parnassum is mocking a book by the great Clementi, who wrote a book of etudes, of studies for young pianists called Gratos ad Parnassum, steps to Parnassus. So how to get better and better. So for all those kids who are tired of playing those exercises all day long, here's the same principle in exercise, but boy, a whole lot more beautiful. I also really loved in this piece when I was a kid, and I still do, the hand crossings. The idea that the hands are they're just flowing one after the other. I think there's something about the Impressionists, the French composers, they're so cognizant of beauty in every way. And I think they are actually also looking at beauty in terms of the hands. Most composers are really just thinking of the sound, and maybe from a pianistic point of view, how to play. But I actually think the French composers are also thinking about how it looks. The second one is called Jimbo's Lullaby, which I think is a sort of a French version of saying Jumbo's Lullaby. Jumbo would be the elephant, like Dumbo. There's a neat little pun in there that no little kid would ever get. In order to make it sound like an elephant, he has you play it in the left hand. So first of all, it's low and it's a very low sound, but of course your left hand doesn't have quite the delicacy of touch that the right hand does, particularly as a student. And he writes on it that you should play it softly and un peu gauche. So a little gauche, but gauche also means left hand, and so he gives the theme to the left hand only. Yet at the same time, it's Debussy. He takes that little awkward little theme, and later he puts it in the right hand, puts an accompaniment with it, and it's the most beautiful, lovely idea. It's something about his music that's just so pure. Laneige danse, the snow is dancing, it really is so evocative of little snowflakes. You could just see them going around and kind of swirling, and he puts it together very difficult technically. I think he was really going for a sound image. It didn't make any difference to him whether it was playable or not. This is the movement that when I was a child I didn't even know existed, because my teacher never thought to let me try to play this piece. And as an adult I came back and thought, why shouldn't I play this piece? And I realized, oh, it's very difficult. You have these notes that start out very simply. Just sounds like a little exercise, right? Some of your fingers moving. And then you're supposed to alternate one hand with the other. But then he adds even more, and it never stops, and somehow it's supposed to always stay rhythmic. This is the line when it first comes, and then he starts alternating left and right hand. And it continues all the way through. They're constantly alternating. And that's a very hard thing to do and keep it in exact rhythm, even when he then adds chords in the center of it. I listen to recordings today of great masters playing that movement, and it's still not quite right. I mean, it's really very difficult to do it. It's such a challenge because it's so lovely and delicate and perfect. So Gollywog's Cakewalk is probably the most famous piece Debussy ever wrote, and even if you think you don't know it, you know it, you've heard people play it. It's got a bit of ragtime in it, and you could really see that influence, 1908, Paris, it's coming in. And my favorite part is in the center. Debussy actually throws either a tip of the hat or a little bit of a mock at Wagner, of all people. Of course he says, avec une grande émotion, with a great emotion. And And that's the famous Tristan chord, and so Debussy just spices it up a little bit. Then he has his little silly, mocking figure. How composers communicate with each other. There's been great debate about how Debussy intended this little moment, but it's so beautiful, so lovely, and again, what a great way to end that group of children's pieces. Even though Debussy was very inspired by the world of the child, and particularly by the world of his daughter, he was Debussy and he was writing at his level. Anybody can get something out of this piece, whether it's the child first learning it or the adult looking back at it. One of my favorite experiences was I performed this work for a group of music teachers. I didn't think about the fact that, of course, all these teachers hear some of these pieces all the time, right? Because their students are playing some of these early works. Afterwards, they all came up to me and they said, I had forgotten just how much depth is in this music. Because coming at it from the perspective of the adult, there's so much more. And of course, I think of it now from the perspective of having 2-year-old boys, just similar to the age that Debussy's daughter was when he wrote this. And I see that world now. I find the magic in it and the wonder in it, but I'm also able to see some of the struggles and some of the difficulties, which you don't see earlier on. This piece was published in 1908, the last of the pieces in the group on this recital, even though it's the first one on the program. It really does build on everything that all the other composers have done, and also on everything that Debussy has done, and all the different abilities to combine sound and to just make incredible little visions of light just with a couple of notes.